Hello, and welcome to another edition of In Between the Pages with James Lott Jr. I'm James Lott Jr. And we're going to get in between the pages with someone who, his pages are bestsellers, folks. And I'm so excited. He has a concept book series that I think is brilliant. Brilliant. And I was asked to do two of them, actually, but I couldn't because I was just too busy. But I believe in the product so much. I believe in the product. You guys know I do a lot of stuff. But I believe in the product so much that I am bringing on, I already have Regina Lark. I've already had Debbie Rosemont on the show. I am bringing on the person who created this whole wonderful series, the One Habit series. Now, we're going to talk about some of the books that became bestsellers, how he came up with this whole concept, and just how is he doing in general. My new friend, Steve Samblis. Hi, Steve.
Thanks, buddy. It's so good to be here, by the way. I've been watching your interviews, and I think there's something beautiful about a great conversation. It's one of my favorite things in life, by the way. And that's why I really, really enjoy your interviews because, where people try to do interviews and they're holding their cue cards, they're asking the next question, you just have a conversation. They're so beautiful. So I was excited to talk to you today.
Well, this preface it for the fact that you're also a seasoned interviewer yourself. So you do know the art of interviewing. And that's a good point. I mean, I had Eric Braden of Young and the Restless, who plays, of course, Victor Newman for the last 40 years, said on my interview with him, he said, you're a good interviewer like Larry King, which is one of my idols. And I almost wept on camera when he said that. Yeah. But he says, because you listen and you talk. I know interviewing is not easy, folks. Not everybody can just be an interviewer. I mean, it's a whole delicate balance of what time period, watching the clock, what you want out of the interview, trying to make them comfortable, getting certain questions out. So I understand some interviewers, they just question, answer. Oh. But the meat and the gold, and you probably agree with this, is in the conversation. Stuff comes up. That's where you want to get, right? Right, Steve?
Yes. And the other thing, too, is like when I would interview, I interviewed Robin Williams for Happy Feet. And when you start the interview, there's certain things you'd like to get to. But because you're listening, it's an organic thing. You let that thing go. And if you can bring it back in, you do it. But if you're not, the flow of that beautiful movement of the interview is in itself magical. So I said to him, you've been spending the majority of your life making other people laugh. He said, pretty much. I go, what makes you laugh? And he said, oh my God. He said, there's Louis C.K., there's Chris Rock, Patton Oswalt, give me the whole hem. And I said, no. I said, but not people. What's funny to you? Because that's what I wanted to figure out. Not comics that was his favorite. And so I was able to move it back around gently. And he said, you know what? It's just real life. I think that's what is funny to me is real life. He said Louis C.K. and Doug Stanhope did this amazing episode on Louis' show. And they were talking about suicide. Here's the good news, here's the bad news. We're trying to be Mother Teresa here. But it was so honest that it was funny to me.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of things as an interviewer that you have your things you want to get to. And every once in a while, if you can gently move the conversation, but sometimes you go with that river. You go with that rapid river, and it can be fast sometimes, right?
It can, and that's the thing. You learn after a while. You just learn it. I mean, I've had interviews that are not the greatest. I've done over 2,000 hours of television at this point. I don't know how many count how many, but
wow, that's amazing.
I've been doing it for like so many years. But there's interviews that I could tell I wasn't on my game completely, or it was okay interview, but maybe I was a little off. Compared to the ones where you're like, that was good. Like you could tell. And it's not an ego thing. You just tell. And even they'll tell you, that was good. That was a good question. Yeah. If someone says good question to you, so that's a good point.
That feels so good, doesn't it?
It does.
It feels so good.
It does.
It's so good.
You're like, I'm done. You get it. And so now I'm an author of myself. I have like 30 books out. I'm also.
I know you do. I know you're very prolific.
Yeah, thank you. I'm an author, but I also love reading books. So this is why I have this book podcast and this literary podcast. And so the latest book that I had on here, many of you guys have watched, was The Habit for a Thriving Home Office. Debbie Rosemont was the co-lead on that. But you've had other ones. I mean, these are bestsellers. We're talking 100 Habits from the Happiest Achievers on the Planet. I love that title. Thank you. The other one Habit to Beat Cancer, which you're very kind to give to my mom, and you guys know my mom is going through right now.
Yeah.
Number one bestseller. Another one was Action Takers?
Yeah, Women Action Takers. Yeah, that's a very interesting story behind that one too.
I mean, but you have so I think you have like 5 or 6 now. I think at this point that were like number one.
Well, there's six bestsellers that are published, and I'm working on 14 more right now.
Okay, so okay, first of all, were you all, because you went from interviewer, were you always a writer?
No. As a matter of fact, I was a pretty bad writer. I didn't know to put a comma before the end. And I've learned now. I've really gotten to be quite a good writer now through this process. When I wrote, it was write how people talk.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily grammatically correct. And so thank God for Grammarly, I was able to use that.
Yes.
Yeah, James, I use that on emails sometimes when it's like 4 a.m. and I'm still working. I've been working all night. I just want to make sure I'm not sending out something goofy, and so I run it through Grammarly. But so no, I wasn't a great writer, but at the same time, I was a good communicator. So even though grammatically, an article I would do might not be perfect, but what I was trying to say, you really got, and you could feel it. And so there was inside of me the communication aspect, and I learned by now through this process. You gotta understand, I just started this last July.
I know. I was gonna say, you talk about me. I'm not going, hello.
And by the way, never published a book before. When I came up with the idea, I didn't know how I was gonna get it out. I didn't know how to format a book. I had no process in place, but here's what I did have. Many years before July came out, Greg Reed does these things called Secret Knock, where a small group of people get together with very, very, very accomplished entrepreneurs and people, entrepreneurial in life in general, what I call happy achievers. Happy achievers are the people that are fully functioning on all levels of life, in their business, with their family, with their God, with their community, with the earth, with all these parts of what life is. They're high achievers, which makes them happy achievers. So I'm at the thing with Secret Knock, and I was filming for Greg, and I had all these famous. I had Frank Shankwitz, who started the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I had Ron Klein, who invented the magnetic strip on the back of your credit card. And I'm looking at these people sitting in the back room, like, what makes them different? Because they're all motivated. Everybody's motivated, and I'm thinking that I think it's what they do. It's their habits. So this was 3 years before I did the book.
I'm hearing something. Okay.
Yep. So I got the camera during the break when they were signing at the table, and I walked up to each one of them. I said, I'm going to ask you one question for the camera, and I don't know where we're going to go with this, guys. So I said, if you could instantly instill in a child one habit, just one habit, what would it be and why? Now, here's the 2 things that happened that blew me away. The first thing that blew me away was, quite frankly, every one of them knew their one habit. They knew it. James, they actually knew it. And number 2, they were hugely passionate about sharing it with me and how I and everyone else must use this habit. So I was like, there's something here. And this just ruminated in my head. And then about a year before July, when the book was launched, I just started writing to everybody. And I wrote to like 3,000 people. And to get down to 100 people, and here's how little I knew about publishing. I thought I was going to do a one habit book with 300 people. Not realizing that would have been 1,000 pages. Okay.
Yeah, wait a minute. To be a say, I was like, okay. Yes.
Yeah. So to make a long story short-ish, if possible, I took that motivation, that inspiration, and I sent that same question to these people. And I took the 100 people that I thought were the true happy achievers, people that I used to think Steve Jobs was one of my heroes, and until I realized that he doesn't seem like he was a very happy person. And it seemed, based on the stories, I didn't know him at all, but based on stories, maybe he didn't have much of a family life and other things. And so I don't want to ever be that. I want to be more than that. I want to be better than that. So anyhow, so that's how the first book came about. And then when I did the first book, it was going to be only one book.
Of course.
Suddenly,
that's how it always is. You do one, that's be it.
Yeah. And so what happened was all of a sudden, all the people in the book, and I'm saying not a few of them, all of them wrote to me and said, Steve, this is more than a book. This is kind of becoming a movement, because we're all talking about this now. We're suddenly talking about habits in a way we never did before. And that's when I said, let's do other books on other subjects. And that's how we got here today. And we're still going.
No, but seriously, it's one of those things where a seemingly simple concept that's just out there in your face, so to speak, staring you in the face, that no one has picked up on. It's funny when that meets, when those two things meet, where it's like, when someone does, you go, why did I think of that? Like, that was like that's such a great, I mean, because the premise of his books are, you're being told one habit and one habit to unlearn, like one to learn and one to unlearn, correct?
Yeah, habit and unhabit. And the reason why, and a strong reason why.
Yeah.
And the idea, what's interesting with these books, when I did the first book, people were reading them from the beginning to the end. And I had to go in the other book and say, listen, that's not how you use these books. Read the beginning, understand how to make a habit your own. But once when you do that, flip through the pages and let a habit find you. And if you see that habit, that one single habit would enhance your life, then make it part of your life. Use the process, make it part of your life. Once it is part of your life, then you can flip again and find the next one. And here's what's interesting though. I did some things, because as I'm talking to people, I'm building the books, that I grabbed some of their habits and I just put one in my life, okay? And it changed my life forever. And I realized that one single habit can change your life forever. So James, you can go through this book and find one thing. Let me tell you, I'll give you an example of a really small one, okay? And this is one habit for a thriving home office. Now, this is one that is a habit because it's something that you now do every day. But I was able to literally make it part of me in like this. And what that is, real simply, is I bought a second monitor for my computer. And it's a 27-inch, and it's not landscape, it's portrait.
Oh.
And that one little habit, using a second monitor on a daily basis, has been a game changer. Aesthetically, my desk is less cluttered. I'm able to move things around. And so that really reaffirmed that one habit can seriously change your life forever. Forever.
The thing about, these books are, you don't have to read them from front to back or back to front. That's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is, you don't go from page 1 to page 500. Like, it's like you pick where you just go in, you just open a book and go, okay, and start from there. Or read a name and go, I know that name. Let me see what they're talking about.
Yes.
Seriously, that's the beauty of this book, is that you don't have to, there's no pressure to read it in a certain way.
You know what's interesting too? I've seen something that's interesting. A lot of the initial habits are not very similar because everybody has a different, it might sound similar, but they're not, because of how the people, their reason for their whys, okay? But what I see a lot of is a lot of similarities in the unhabits.
Oh.
One of the, and I used to go back and say, I need another unhabit, but I don't do that anymore. Because if 15 people out of 100 are saying the unhabit of negative self-talk, get rid of that. I'm realizing that there's power, and they're noticing that, and I need to reinforce that. And when you flip through and you find your habit, I'm hoping that that's one that you find, because even my friends do that, and I got to say, listen, I don't want to ever hear that out of your mouth again.
Right.
They're driving along. I'm with my buddy in the car, and he goes, "Oh, idiot! Dude, don't ever talk to yourself like that."
Right.
Because there's enough people out there that want to talk negatively to us across the board. People we do know and don't know, right?
Very true.
So don't be a part of that party, okay?
So people are sharing knowledge, experience, humor, drama.
Yeah.
I guess, and their habit and unhabit, that's what you're asking them to do, is to share themselves, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I did too, this is really important. So when I did the first book, it was just emails going back and forth and agreements being signed through email. On my second book, every time I do a book, I learn something from my co-author, okay? And Linda Sunshine West said, Steve, let's do this. Let's create a forum where we ask all the pieces of the questions, and they can just sign the form, and that'll be their agreement, and they hit the button. So that removed a big part of the process. It became one form. And so that made it much easier. And then we talked about, you know what? Let's do an unhabit. And by the way, that was for the book, One Habit for Women Action Takers. And so before it was just a habit and a reason why, then we did the unhabit. And that was in that my co-author Linda helped me figure that out. And that became a part of all the books in the future.
Okay.
And then Court Davies, who co-wrote One Habit to Beat Cancer with me, who brought in 50 cancer thrivers, people that have been through cancer and all kinds. There's so many different kinds of cancer. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
He said, let's add to this how you apply this habit to your life. So that grew from there. And then another book I'm doing with Crystal Richards is on One Habit to End Bullying. And she says, let's do a statement in each chapter on my message to a bully that allows a contributor that's been through it before, or maybe they've even been a bully, whatever. And because we want to create a book that actually puts a stop to it, because I think that a lot of the things in life, the negativity. Okay, here's another story. Jacob Isaacs plays, I can't remember his character in Harry Potter, but I was interviewing for Harry Potter, and he was telling me that his kids were just old enough now to see the movies. I said, but I gotta ask you a question. Your character is kind of a bad guy. Are you okay with your kids seeing it? He goes, you know what? I gotta tell you, Steve, he's not a bad guy. What he is he's a racist from a standpoint of muggles and wizards, you know, like the people that aren't wizards and orcs. But his racism is based on fear. He's afraid and doesn't understand these people. And so because of his fear, he's passing it on to his son, who luckily is going to break that chain, right? But what I found is the bottom line is communication. So if you can communicate to a bully, if you can get them just to see your humanity, and you'll find most of these bullies are terrified. There's a parent that's bullying them. There's somebody else that's bullying. So I'm really feeling that these books are healing people in a lot of different ways. And this is why I love this so much, what's happening. We're doing One Habit to Beat Alcoholism. With Temple Hayes, who took over Marianne Williamson's church in Florida, and huge amount of people that follow her. She's a spiritual guide for that particular church. And so I just, once again, we talked about this before we started. I loved your speech so much. When you got that award, it was about a year ago, right?
Yep.
And the reason I loved it so much is because you said something. You said about, this is for all the old guys out there, because listen, this really happened for me when I was 58 years old last July.
Amazing. That's amazing.
I've done things, and you've done things with your life that you love. We all have. But this is the first time that I feel like I can change the world, something I've always wanted to do,
I feel that too. I feel like the things I did before were great. They're fine. They help some folks. But now I want to effectively affect positive change. I feel like you're the same way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's so cool that more people like us, guys and girls like us that are at these ages that are doing things to finally find their bliss. I think it's important to share that beyond what the project is, because that to make it people can be late bloomers, and that's okay.
Well, the thing is, we see you and I. I'm 51, so we're of that same generation basically. We had to unlearn the whole thing of no, you get your job and career early.
Oh,
you do it to the end of time. You turn 65, 67 years old, retire, then your life starts, like some weird shit like that. We don't do that. It's like we have to unlearn that behavior and go, yes. No, that job is not serving me in any form. It's not feeding me in any form. It's not doing anything for me besides, I'm making some money, but it's not doing anything for me.
Yeah.
Now we want to do something more than that. We want to affect change, make our own out, whatever it is. You can't do that at 40 or 50 or 60. Like you just go ahead.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, it was that whole thing of I turned 40 years old, and I just I made all this shit ton of money, and I thought everything was great, but I wasn't happy. I had a stomach ache every day, and I just was not happy.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm like, okay. But when I made that speech last year, I turned 50 years old, like 3 months before that. And I was feeling like I was sitting at the audience. There's all these young people in the audience. I was going, I said this. We're still vital, viable, and valuable. Those are my three words. I don't know where they came from. I
know you didn't read your speech. You just came up with it, right?
I just came up with it. I don't know why, but that's how I feel. I feel like we are those three things. We are vital, valuable, and viable. We still can be producers of something. We still can bring out content. We still can affect change, and we're still needed. We have all this experience in our lives. Good, bad, everything in between. We have experience in our lives that can help inform other people of what's going on out there. And I think you starting now, like, to me, it's the right time for you to start this now.
I don't regret any of my travels of my life. It all got me here, right? But what I can do is I can help others to share with them. The biggest thing that changed, James, I think, was also what my concept of my bliss. When I was 28 years old and I was a stockbroker, my concept was a 10,000 square foot house, a Ferrari, a Porsche, a Lambo, real artwork on the walls. That was my idea of this bliss. And it's not that anymore, man. You know, it's great conversations like we're having right now. It's about changing people. You know, like my mission statement for my company now is real simply, we're a vertically integrated media company with the sole purpose of exploring the world of human potential. I want to help people. I want to find undiscovered voices, people that are great but have never had the opportunity to share. And I want to put them on the biggest soapbox possible, on the biggest distribution platform possible, and allow them to give them structure to tell their story, even if it's just one chapter of a book, because that will change their lives as well.
You and I are twins. We're twins. I can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I feel the same thing because I do music and books and TV and podcasts, and I have had a lot of people that I brought on. I was their first interview, or I put them on a song. I want to be on a song. Okay, so I sat down, wrote a song, say these lines, and then I put on a song. You know, I have 7 people I co-write books with right now, 8 at the moment, and so I'm helping them out. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing. I have friends who say, I have a script. Let's develop it. Okay, come on, let's develop it. So I'm like you. It's like I want to give a chance and a platform, the little piece of whatever I have, I want to share with the rest of everybody else and help them lift up. We have to lift up. That's what your books are doing. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely, yes. And here's what's funny. I got to tell you, when I started the first book, I thought my customer or my client was the reader, the person that was going to read the books. So I focused on them. And then when I finished it, I realized that my real customer client is the author and the contributors. If I tell their story in the best way possible to the biggest group of people possible, I will affect the biggest change possible. But it starts with the author, not the people buying the books. And then I found in my head there was a remembrance of the guy that started Virgin Air. What's his name? Branson. Yeah. Yes. And he had one time, and I'm totally paraphrasing, but the essence of what he said was this: I don't worry about customer service. I worry about taking care of my employees. Because if I have happy employees, they're going to create happy customers. And that's very much what I'm doing without realizing it. Maybe subconsciously I was. But when I was able to find out who my true customer was, who my true client was, being that author and that contributor, that was another game changer. And by the way, I'm learning every day, which is super exciting too, right?
Yeah.
Man, it's just amazing.
Should never stop. The education should never stop.
Yeah, because I think that when it does stop, I think when people retire, they just atrophy.
I agree.
Going to a golf course 5 days a week, I mean, if that's your bliss, great. But to me, that's so hollow, man.
Chances are, Steve, I will be working. I think I said my dream would be I'll be on an interview and I'll be like, I'm James Lott Jr. and good night, and that'll be it. I mean that's kind of how I look at it. Like, I want to go while I might be on stage somewhere and I'm like, thank you, good night, and then that's it. I mean, I want to finish what I'm doing and die doing what I love. I feel like I mean, Andy Rooney was in his 90s. I mean, I could do this the rest of my life. I mean, literally wheel me out behind a desk, and if I have my mental state, I can do this the rest of my life. And so I feel like for me, this is it. I mean, I'm going to be doing these 10 different things the rest of my life.
Yeah. You know, one of the things you're doing is you have this subliminal message you're sharing with everybody in what you do that about, you know, you're showing it in who you are, that you love what you do. And you're making people, when they watch your interviews, realize that there's something to that makes us more authentic. It makes us more alive. It allows these conversations to flow and have value beyond just the two of us. And I think that if we can both do that, is to make people understand. And a lot of people are like, oh, whatever, do what you love, whatever. My dad worked for 40 years at U.S. Atlas Cement in Gary, Indiana. Wow. And he was miserable. He came home every day covered in cement soot, and he got like 3 months off a year because he worked for so many years because he was union and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But he hated what he did, you know. And it took me a long time to realize that if you do what you love, eventually the money will come.
Well, that's the thing. And I was told that by my mentors in Hollywood. They're like, don't worry about the audience, trying to get them. Do good content. Just create the best you can.
Do the thing. The money will come. Yes, exactly. I love that.
They'll come to you. They'll like build it, they will come. But literally, that's what I was told. Was like, well, James, focus on the relationships, focus on the partnerships, focus on the content, and then just keep producing And at some point, something's going to hit. Like it's almost like being a slot machine. You do it enough time.
Like my first book, man. It's the same thing.
Right.
Like my first book, at age 58, my bliss arrived.
Well, as we're talking, I'm part of a #1 best-selling book as of yesterday.
I know, I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm just saying, I'm 50.
I know how hard that is. I know
you do. So I'm saying I'm 51, and so I'm just telling people that I still dream. My aunt, who's almost 80, says I dream all the time. Like she doesn't end at a certain age. I think that's the part of it you have to kind of remember. I think with you starting a venture, this, later, I'll put in air quotes, folks, later in life.
Okay with that.
You're not dead, but later in life, for the purposes of everybody, because you're not 25, 30, but doing it later in life, a concept that anybody could have thought of, anybody could have thought of it, but you did, and then you implemented it. That's where I'm impressed. I always feel like that's where it goes. It's like, people have ideas all the time, Steve. They talk about them to death. They don't do nothing about them. They just talk.
That is the saddest thing in the world. And let me tell you where I experienced that, James. My father, when I was a little kid, would buy 78 records. They were these they were smaller than LPs, but they weighed as much as a steel plate. And they'd be from Zig Ziglar and Norman Vincent Peale and Cavett Roberts and Les Brown eventually. And all these great speakers who have been around for years and years and years. But he would buy them and feel good about himself because he bought the motivational record. I, as a little kid, had a record player in my bedroom, and I would take these and I would listen to Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret or Acres of Diamonds, and these were like story time for me. So these motivational speakers that we love so much have always been part of my life. But I realized later in life how sad it was that I was the one that cracked the spine on the books. I was the one that opened the albums, not my dad. He felt good about himself just because of the thing he did. But, and that's part of the thing too. That's what's really interesting. And I just now realize this as I'm talking to you, because my concept at the beginning is motivation gets you started in life, but it's your habits that keep you going. It's your habits that when the motivation is gone and you're in the mud and it's raining on you and you got 2 feet in, you got to pick up the right foot and push it forward and stand up in your next foot. It's the habits that let you do that, because the motivation is gone, you're drained. And my dad was motivated to buy the thing, but he never had the habits to follow through with those. He did other great things in his life, as he was a good dad and he's a good provider. But he could have been so much more happier if he had those habits that would allow him to really do the things he would have loved. And that saddens me, because I saw that. And it saddens me in humanity in general that there's so many people out there that just, they don't understand that you can get excited. You can go to listen to a motivational speech or read a book that motivates you. But unless you put good habits combined with that, you're just going to stay in the same space. And that's why these books are helping people, I think.
I agree. And I think that's the thing. I think people just, either out of fear of success or fear of failure, or like you said something earlier that you did, you walked through the unknown. That's what I got from the beginning. I didn't know how to publish a book. I know how to do. I mean, same with me. I'm figuring it all out. I'm like, I want to do music. Well, how do I do music? Well, I found producers, and the thing is, you walked through it. That's the big lesson, I think, out of all of this, is that you have to walk through stuff, whether you know about it or not. You have to.
And by the way, when you are ready to learn, your mentors will show up.
Oh, I totally agree.
Totally agree. So when I was doing the first book, I had no idea how to lay out the book, and I didn't know where I was going to do distribution-wise. And so I went to the biggest independent writer I knew that I could connect with. His name is Mark Tufo. He writes a giant series of books called Zombie Fallout, and there's Like and Fallout and some other, and he sold like 8 million copies self-published. So I wrote to him, I said, Mark, I got this great idea for a book I'm putting together in Word, and how do you guys do the self-publishing? Because I want to get it out there, and I don't know what to do. He said, well, I do the writing, but my wife, Tracy, does the distribution and publishing. And Tracy spent a month and a half with me and just showed me, here's the program you use, Steve. Here's your distribution platforms. Here's what you should use and what you shouldn't do. And then once I learned that, I was able to expand and get bigger and bigger. We're now in 39,000 locations around the world, between bricks and mortars and online and libraries and like that, 39,000 locations. But But here's what's interesting. In my first book, there was these two girls. They're called the pseudo twins, two twin girls, very motivational girls. And their habit was to ask greatly. In other words, if you need help publishing, don't ask, your neighbor. Go find the biggest person you can go to and ask them. If you want a mentor, go to Don Green, who runs the Napoleon Hill Foundation. You know what I'm saying? Go to Les Brown. Go to Dennis Waitley, whoever it might be. And so I asked greatly. I realized that's what I had done, and it served me, and it allowed me to find the path to publish. And by the way, when I needed it, when it was really time to publish, the answer came to me. It was there, and that reaffirmed in my life that through my entire life, I think that whenever I put a question out there to the universe, as soon as I let go and let the universe answer me back, as opposed to holding on to it and shoving at the universe, as soon as I let go, the answer would always come. So it's one of those things where the less effort you put into it, the more assured you're going to have the results you want.
Well, in my experience, I like that also. My experience has been, you get on the road, and you drive down the road.
Yes.
So you stay on the road. Some exits close up along the way. You may think you want to turn off on that exit because that looks so attractive over there, and you really want it, and then it doesn't happen. Okay, I learned that. Oh, but that wasn't supposed to happen. That's if you don't, I don't know if people believe in religion or whatever, but for me, it's God closes that exit off and says, no, keep going on the road.
Same team.
But see, don't get off the road. That's the point. You've interviewed him too. Every single actor or producer or director or writer who's in their like 70s, 80s, like whatever I've talked to. I interviewed Ed Asner 3 times, my buddy Ed Asner 3 times.
So cool.
They say the same thing. They just stuck in it. That's why they're still getting work, because they stuck in it and they continue and they're out there. It's like, that's the point. So for me, I've learned there's always going to be twists and turns in the road. There's going to be dips and drops and up hills and down valleys. That actually freed me, Steve, when I literally realized I let go. I let go. And I knew that. So now I've had the ups and downs. I've had the bad interviews. I've had the gigs I didn't get. But then I get a #1 best-selling book out of nowhere that I just happen to say yes. So I'm saying yes to stuff and staying on the road and driving, my nice little car, putt-putting down the road. But that's the point. Don't jump off the road because you're like, don't.
And wait a minute. And here's the thing too. It was never about your destination. It was always about the journey.
I know it sounds cliche, folks out there. I know it says it's not, but it's the truth. It really is the truth. For me, it's being able to wake up every day and do what I do. I don't take for granted, Steve, at all. I don't take for granted at all how fortunate that I am to be sitting here next to you having a conversation in my room with my equipment, in my room for my network that I own, that people actually will tune into this. Because there's a lot of choices out there, Steve. There are a lot of choices. And absolutely. I would say, when someone buys a book of mine, I have a new song that came out today, they buy the song or spin it. My thing is, that's a win. I know how discerning I can be sometimes in what I purchase and listen to and watch. Oh, that to me is a win that I can't take for granted. 30 years ago, I probably wouldn't be able to do this. Who knows that this wasn't here. You writing a book, it's like self-publishing. 30 years ago, that was frowned upon.
No, that wasn't going to happen. You're certainly not going to do a radio show from your house. There's so many things we couldn't do.
Right.
Opportunities are so amazing today. You know what's sad though too? As these opportunities, there's so many people that they're still stuck 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When somebody says to me, I'm not real good at using a computer, I'm like, come on, dude. I can't figure out this phone. Come on. You're missing out on life. Come on, just take a moment, take a class. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's just giving up, So, but I love your analogy about going down the road, because it's really, it was never about those looking for the right exits, because you never wanted to get off that road. Ed Asner didn't want to get off that road, right?
Yeah.
It was
half the fun is seeing what's down the road. That's the fun.
The best part of a vacation when I was a little kid, because my dad had all those months from working 50, 60 hours a week, was driving from Indiana to Kissimmee, Florida, to go to Disney World when it first opened. And it wasn't, Disney was great, but the road, and my grandmother would be in the car with us. It would be my brother, myself, my mom and dad, and my grandma. And we got this Dodge Sportsman motorhome. And so I had grandma with us, and we'd stop.
Okay,
my mom was so cheap. She would get these free tours at these timeshare resorts on the way down to Florida, and they'd let us stay for the weekend.
Look, go mom. She ain't cheap. She resourceful.
I know.
Resourceful. That's what it was. She was like, we're gonna stay down. I admire her already. That was
fun. So we're staying at Cherokee Village on the way down and stuff like this.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
We go to the timeshare tour and get our free whatever it was, and then we go play with the kids, and we're staying for 2 days.
I love it. I love it. I think that was smart. You do what you had to do. But that's all.
Absolutely, you had to do what you had to do.
That's the whole point for all of us, is that it's up to us to find what we want to do. I mean, that's our journey. We have to find out what that thing is, or things are that bring us happiness, or bring us some joy or contentment or whatever. It's up to us. And so whether it's writing a book series, or doing a show, or even working at a company you've always wanted to work for, whatever that is, or be a flight attendant or whatever it is, you have to find it. And I think your One Habit books, going back to that, would be a great source to go to hear people's, because another thing is, we're also a herd mentality. We like being part of the pack. Humans like
100%. Yes.
So your books, to me, speak to that in terms of, oh, you're not alone. We're not alone. Someone else feels the way I do about this too. Let me see what they said about this. How did they get through being stuck?
Yeah.
I'm stuck right now.
It's so interesting you say that, because I never really, until this very second, I didn't realize what I did. That, like, the One Habit for a Thriving Home Office, there's like 78 people in there.
Yes.
I'm doing a new book with Forbes Riley on One Habit for entrepreneurial success, and we're gonna have 100 people on that one. And here's what's happened. So we created a group on Facebook for contributors, and that group has been a place where contributors from all the different books can come together and coalesce and talk and help each other out, and it's that thing about those groups. And every time I do a book, I'm part of another group, because I'm doing another book with them. And there's something about that. There's just something about knowing that you're not alone. I want to say one other thing too. This is really important, and it's important for everybody's journey. Every time I do a book now, I'm terrified when I release it on release day that no one's going to care.
Of course.
I'm so afraid, because and here's the thing: if none of mine were bestsellers, I'm like, no big deal. But now I'm expected every book's going to be a bestseller, and I do have a pretty good process on how to make that happen. But I just want to let you know, and the people listening know, that I get scared, man, and I get scared of my journey, and I'm going like, I hope I'm good enough, I hope I'm good enough for my authors. I hope I'm good enough for our readers, And so that fear makes me work harder. It makes me, work 2 days straight if I have to when I'm on a deadline, and it makes me appreciate people like you that take the time to talk to me, and people that are in the book, and the people that read the book, because you guys are saying that I did something, we've done something of value, and that means so much more than any dollar I can make anywhere. Because once again, my goal in life was to find human potential, to seek out those brilliant minds and give them a platform, and hopefully affect the world in a positive way.
I could talk to you forever, but I can't. They don't want to do 5-hour podcasts. They want them at a certain time length. But Steve, you are amazing, and you are affecting positive change in the world. So I want you to know that. You are.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Tell folks where you can find the whole One Habit book series and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, real simple. If you go to the number1habit.com, there's our website. You can see all the books on there. We're just working on a process now where all the authors will have their own pages on there, so you can learn about all the authors as well. And here's what's really interesting. Many of the authors don't just do one book. Most authors are in 3 or 4 other books, and a lot of them become co-authors, and we build a book together on another subject. So the whole process as it's happening is alive there at onehabit.com. And you can go there and find something that you feel might either help you, or maybe it'll help somebody you love, somebody you care about. and you might find a book on there that you might be able to send to somebody. That'd be a huge value. Now you can also go to Amazon. You can just put in One Habit, and you'll see all the books there as well. But more of the story is told at onehabit.com.
Yeah, and the Thriving Home Office, my girl, Debbie Rosemont, as you guys know her.
Love Debbie.
I love Debbie. I've known Debbie for years. It's been on my shows. But thing is, if you're a lot of us working from home, get that book. It's a really valuable book right now.
If you're going to work from home, then build an empire. If you're going to do something, do it great. And this book will help anybody that doesn't know what that looks like to have the conversation with their family, to set up the office, right? All the little things that's in the mind, it's a mindset, it's in there. And there's going to be a habit. It might be just one habit, but it could change your life forever.
Well, I'll tell you, things will slow down. I may do a One Habit with you. Who knows? We may work something out.
I hope so. I hope you do.
I love the series. I just think it's an amazing community that you're creating. That's what.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And if you want to catch my other interviews with Debbie Rosemont and Regina Lark, go to the SOS show with James Lott Jr. And those two interviews are out. They're on all streaming, so like this, it's on all streaming services, also on YouTube and JLJ Media. So you can check those out. We talk about the Thriving Home Office with Debbie Rosemont, and Regina Lark is collecting folks for the Chronic Disorganization.
I love this book, by the way. I'm really excited about this because I have a lot of people that are important in my life that are just hugely disorganized. And see, the thing about Debbie and the thing about Regina, they're organizers, professional organizers. That's why doing the book with Debbie was just such a beautiful thing, because she's so organized. Sure. And I'm super organized, all processes, right? And so Regina's just wonderful. Regina introduced me to Debbie.
There you go.
We started working with the books at the same time, but the Thriving Home Office became such a big thing because of COVID and everything.
Yes.
And everybody wanted to get in there and tell their. It's interesting when something's needed, I get more contributors that want to say, "Hey, I can help. I can't write a whole book, but I can give you one thing that's going to help your lives." You know. And so Regina introduced me to her, and I'm really excited about this One Habit for Chronic Disorganization, because I think there's a lot of people out there that need this.
Thank you. That's going to be really good. And I'm James Lott Jr. You can follow me where all James Lott Jr.'s are sold at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms. That's Lott with 2 T's, not one. And you can follow me on all the social medias at JLJ Media also. You can go catch us there. In Between the Pages is on Facebook. There's a page for it. And I do more things with the authors and other tidbits on there. And the book I'll make sure there's links of the book on there so you can actually go there and follow them. And also in the description below, I'll have the links in there too. And please tell people, if anybody needs to know about this, share this interview. Feel free. Share it with anybody you want. Let them know what's going on. Steve, take care of yourself. Everyone out there, please have compassion, lift each other up, and share knowledge.